my wife and I decided to introduce her parents to the My Dress Up Darling anime.
Oh man.
Hello and welcome back to another Dead Pixel, a podcast about video games, entertainment, and more or less the weird things in between. I'm your host today for episode 14, Joe, and with me, my colleague, co-host, the man who now has his own brand new sex dungeon, Nick. How's the new dungeon going, Nick?
It's going great, Joe. You know, when I moved in here, I really didn't expect there to be bolts already in the wall and the floors, but the extra security deposit that I slipped them in an envelope really, they made sure to get that done before I moved in. So it's going great for things like that. I'm really happy. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. So, for those of you who don't know what's going on, currently the video quality is a little lackluster, but that's because I'm talking to you from a hotel room in Florida, and so yeah, I'm just doing this while I'm on vacation.
You
Uh,
you are now Florida man.
yeah, right. So you'll see me on the news, a bunch of meth, and
Bath salts.
no, yeah. So the actually, if you ever watch, was it there's a TV show on Netflix, and that was it's The Good Place.
Oh yeah.
And one of the guys is from Jacksonville, Florida, and they
Yeah.
constantly refer to it as like the worst place on earth. It's pretty funny.
That, like, they make fun of him for being from Florida, but they also make fun of her for being from Arizona. And I don't know what's I mean, Florida I can kind of it's not a bad place to live to me, but I can kind of understand it's like you're a crazy person because you're from Florida, but the Arizona thing I never quite got, but it was always funny.
Yeah, well, we actually happened to be pretty close to Jacksonville at one point, and my wife points over. It's like, "Hey, we were only like an hour away from Jacksonville," and I'm just like, "Bortles," which is a thing he says all the time,
Oh
and he
yeah.
ends up, yeah, as he's throwing a Molotov cocktail, he's just,
The quarterback. Yeah, that was the quarterback for Jacksonville at the time.
yeah.
He was not really good. He was okay, but he wasn't really good. He was kind of shit, honestly.
So, yeah, it's been a wild time here. Just flew in on like no sleep. Had to get the kids, had to get everything ready, and uh, like left at like 4 a.m. to get to the airport. Had a taxi service pick us up,
I
and
don't,
then
Joe. I don't think you've slept a cumulative 8 hours in your entire life. Like,
uh, not in the past decade, probably.
oh shit, dude, that is so horrible.
There,
So you're in Florida right now. Are you at Disney World? Is that what I'm?
I'm south of Orlando.
Okay.
It's a Kissimmee or something. Yeah, it's we're here for. It was where the long story short, the we had reservations at a hotel resort years like before COVID, and then COVID happened. Everything got bumped back. All our plane tickets. They're like, we're not going to give you our money back, but we'll hold on to your shit for you. And then they're like, okay, after a couple years, they're like, okay, now you got to use it or you lose it. And I'm like, okay, well, we originally wanted to go. Our plan was to go to Australia, and
Oh
uh,
wow.
so we had invested a bit of money on tickets and like hotel rooms because we wanted to go to the Great Barrier Reef, uh, and that was before we had children. COVID happened, two children happened. Here we are. Uh, so we're like, well, if we got to use it, then we went ahead and we invited my mother and father-in-law, and so they're helping manage the kids, or else it would not be possible. I would lose my mind. So I really do appreciate them, and they more or less they at least get a free stay with thanks to us. So
Yeah, like
that's kind of what's happening there.
yeah, like having them is probably. I mean, that's like a make or break on the trip but it's also good because you guys can all take a nice family trip together. The kids won't really remember it, but you guys will, and maybe you'll get to do it again later on too.
Yep, that's exactly it. And so it's like, hey, guess what? Enjoy this because this ain't happening for at least another 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. I mean, in 5 years, yeah, your kids will be old enough to kind of remember it. But like, yeah, that's really good. It sounds like a lot of fun. I've always wanted to go to Florida. I've never been further
Oh,
east than, well, I went to New York State one time, but like as far as like southeast, I've not been further than like Nashville, I think. But
okay.
yeah,
Nashville's nice. I haven't been to Florida since 90 96. um, 96 Olympics. So it'd been 96 to 99 when I was living in Georgia. I came down here and saw a shuttle launch at Cape Canaveral on my birthday.
that's really
So
cool.
that was pretty dope. It really was. So yeah, that was. But other than that, I actually hadn't been to Disney since like I was like five, and I don't remember much. I remember doing Busch Gardens. I remember seeing like Mickey and a few of the others, which I really didn't care about because I was never a Disney kid, but it was fun. And then I remember being super angry because I was too short to ride any of the cool rides,
Mm,
and so I just remember being a little snot about that.
yeah, that does suck. Like those, it sucks because like those parks are made for, it's like it's a very narrow age where you're big enough to ride the ride and you're like really into riding rides. Because I feel
Well,
like,
I was young enough to the point where I wanted to go because the adults went. Chances are, if I got on the thing, I would have been terrified. So,
yeah,
you know, but that was also a long time ago. So since then, I would, like we're talking early 90s or something like that. And the Disney then, or the Orlando then and the Orlando now, it's probably like only 30% of it was back then. And now they've added an extra like 70% because you have so much of Universal, you have like Legoland and a bunch of other stuff. So
yeah.
it's crazy how much it's grown.
I've heard from, I heard from on a podcast, somebody was talking about how they used to live in Florida or in that area in Orlando or whatever. And they said like 30% of the people who lived around there worked for Disney. I was like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, but working for Disney, that could be from anything from working the
Yeah.
hotels, resorts, maintenance crew, landscaping, tickets, and
Yeah,
just
like I'm sure they're not all like doing like wearing the costumes and doing animation or anything like that. They're doing all kinds of normal jobs, but just kind of like the sheer number of people who were working. Like it's like if you went to a town and everybody worked for the same company. I guess it's kind of the same thing, but I don't know, something more ominous about it when it's Disney for some reason.
yeah, and they just keep on buying up more stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's pretty much. We've gone had some good food here and there. We ended up. Uh, I took my father-in-law to Daytona. We did the racetrack tour and got to walk on the racetrack for a bit and stuff like that. He's a pretty big fan of NASCAR, and I watched my fair share of racing in general. So yeah, that was pretty fun. That was cool, and we'll probably end up going to Cocoa Beach and visiting at Cape Canaveral and stuff like that this weekend. Tomorrow's just going to be we're going to stick my in-laws with our kids and be like, here, have them for the day. My wife and I are going out and having some fun. We're having a day to ourselves. Uh,
Yeah.
but to ease that blow, I also took my wife and my mother-in-law out for manicures and pedicures. So my mother-in-law is pretty happy about that. So it's been pretty good.
A little bit of give and take, a little bit of give and take. For some reason, you reminded me, I guess because of your trip to Orlando or to Florida. There's this episode of Blackish where the dad takes everybody to Disneyland, I think, because they're in California, and he gets everybody like these special passes. So because they're skipping all the lines, and they have like a guide who's like a really nice, cool guy, um, and they're doing all this stuff, for the morning, and then at about noon, the guy he goes, okay, that's like the end of your pass, so I'm gonna leave you guys now, and he like leaves, and then the kid turns to his dad and says, "Are our passes over?" And he's like, "Yeah, I could only get the half day pass." And the kid just he's like 15, and he turns to the other kids, and then he turns back to the dad, and he goes, "You mean we're in Gen Pop now?" I was just like, that's like prison, like Gen Pop
Yeah, yeah,
prison,
yeah. Population, yeah.
dude. And I was like, that's so, because he was just so horrified. And they're like, and they like make the music or whatever bad, but I just just imagine that, like you guys walking around in Gen Pop. Anyway, that was neither here
So
nor there.
I happen to find I usually go when I'm on a trip. I usually hit up a liquor store or something like that just to buy some, some of the local things and see what's around. And I saw something that I kind of had to buy. Uh, let's see, get wipe off the condensation. I doubt it's gonna show up too well, but this is a
There you go.
Mountain Dew. Uh,
Other way.
like it's hard Mountain Dew.
Oh wow,
Uh,
black cherry.
they, I don't even think it has caffeine in it, but it has 5% alcohol. They have this one's black cherry. I got the variety pack. Had the regular Dew, had Baja Blast, um, then had the black cherry and watermelon. That was the last one. Uh, so I haven't tried the black cherry yet. So here it goes.
Black cherry is usually pretty good.
The watermelon was pretty dope. It was pretty sweet. They're allegedly zero sugar too.
Allegedly, Joe's drinking. He's testing his palate, swishing it around, taking another drink.
Yeah, it ain't bad.
All right.
I tried the regular Dew, and it's actually the weakest of the flavors. It's actually disappointing. Uh,
Mm. And
so I had tried the.
there's your hard Mountain Dew review.
Yeah, I know, right? It's not bad. I would say it's better than I prefer it right now. Better than a Mike's Hard. But
Okay.
then again, I haven't drank Mike's Hard in a long time. I'll drink it once in a while because my father-in-law will actually drink those, or another buddy of mine who just doesn't really like a lot of alcohol. He loves lemonade, and I'm like, dude, I can't do Mike's Hard anymore. Those when I was young, I had a lot of those, and it gave me some massive gut rot. And now I just have like
Yeah.
reminiscence of that. I'm like, dude, I can't not drink that without thinking, or just like you can't do Jaeger anymore. There's a time in your life where you decide you think Jaeger is a good idea, and then you realize Jaeger was never a good idea, and now
It's
your body hates you.
your body remembers. Your body
Yeah,
remembers what you did to it. Yeah, so that's pretty cool, man. That's I don't really try too many of those, but every time I get a chance, I will. Those are pretty interesting drinks. Um, yeah, so I guess like for me, like my just to wrap up the Nick moving saga, I finally moved into my new apartment, and it took like my dad was helping me last weekend, and he helped me move the big stuff first, and I had to move everything into a storage unit because my lease was up on the 18th, and I couldn't move into the new place until the 19th, so I'd move everything into a storage unit. Um, so my dad helped me with that, and then last weekend some of the bigger things, and then through the week I was just packing. Like it always takes longer than you think, and I was packing every single evening for a couple hours, and I still like barely got it all uh, done by Friday, which is the last day. I mean, like we had plenty of time on Friday, but we had to use like probably 3 or 4 hours on Friday to get the rest of it done. And then on Saturday, I immediately started moving into my new place and had to use my dad for that because I had to. So we like just prioritized like the biggest stuff. I finally got it all in, and dude, I was just like Monday, like I went to work and stuff, but I moved on a little bit on Sunday too, and then on Monday, like I went to work and we ended up getting off early because there was some severe weather coming in, so they were like, you can go home and finish the day on the computer, you know. Um, so I got home and like immediately after like my work hours ended, I was like, I'm going to lay down. And I slept for like 3 hours, and then I got up and ate dinner for like an hour and a half, stayed awake for like an hour and a half, and then I went back to sleep again. I was just so so freaking tired.
yeah, I bet.
But yeah, like
Uh,
so yeah, so that was. that's the end of that saga. Now I just have shit spread all over my new apartment, and I just have to find a place for it because, of course, I just came in and threw everything down. I mean, I tried to organize it as best I could as I was moving in, but there's only so much that you can do. There's just like at some point it creeps toward like you put it at the back corner, and then load after load, and eventually you're just like and it just gets closer and closer to the door, and finally it's blocking the door, and you're like, what happened to me? What did I do? Um, but
Oh.
yeah, anyway, that's
Did you end up doing the trick I told you about? When everything comes to an emergency, and then you start throwing all your shit into a hefty bag,
I
and just like you just empty out your utensil drawer and all your skillets and shit. You throw all your clothes in a hefty bag, and you're just dumping hefty bags into your fucking truck.
no, I never got that desperate. Um, I never got that desperate, but like the computers I did save for very last, cause I just left them in the truck. Like I put them in the truck very cool, very gently, packed stuff around them so they were nice and held together, and then I had to stay the night at my dad's place, and then I was able to put them into the new place, like with the first load. So I just fired up this computer like last night, I think, just to make sure that it was still in working order, so I had enough time to fix it if it wasn't, and everything was great. But so that was so like I don't know. I hope I can keep this place for 2 years. They've been raising the rent like insane amounts because it's Austin. They've been raising the rent like crazy, um, like every year. So they wouldn't give me anything more than a year. Um, but anyway, like it is what it is. But in other news, I had a performance review at work, an annual performance review at work. Like we've been having them, like everybody has them in March, I guess. But so after that, I got a raise, a pretty significant. I got a 5% raise. Well, actually, more like 7% raise. So I was like, sweet. So now, I mean, I could afford this place already, but now I can like really afford it, and do some other cool stuff too. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's nice to be able to. Generally speaking, if a company will match, the cost of living increase, that's always usually worth it. And then if you're dipping into 401k, a nice tip is, if you can add an extra percent, if you can, to your 401k every year, that it's like it doesn't do much, at first, but it adds up over time. It's one of those things that, in the long term, it's like, well, it's at least, it's a passive way to increase your 401k. But
that's
no, it's unfortunately the couple places I know, they only only do about 1 to 2% raise increase with a max of 3. I'm like, dude, cost of living goes up more than 3% on a yearly basis, often, and so it's not even enough to offset that stuff. So yeah, that's
yeah,
pretty good. That's a pretty good increase for you.
yeah. It is. It is actually really great. I like. I've never been at a company that I don't know that was kind of this. Like people were talking about it, like, hey, like nobody said anything outright, but it was just kind of like whenever people would talk about it, it was like March is when raises happen, and they said it's not always definite, but it seems to happen a lot. So I was like, well, fingers crossed, sounds good. But anyway, so I'm just glad to have it because now I can afford more crap to put on my apartment. Uh,
All right.
yeah,
Well, so I guess because of all the moving, have you actually had time to watch anything?
a little bit. I have had a chance to watch a new show on Apple TV. I know last time I talked about Severance, or last time I talked about Servant on Apple TV, and this is a different show that just came out. Its first season. It's called Severance. Um, it's directed by Ben Stiller, which I didn't know about until I saw the end of the first episode. Um, I was interested in this show already a little bit, but like I was talking to my mom and she was like, "Are you watching Severance?" And I was like, no, not yet. And she's like, you need to watch it. It's good. And I was like, okay. So I finally got around to watching it. This show is, I guess you'd call it science fiction. It is set in a like a near future, I guess, like a very near future. Like it feels like just like regular and modern, or maybe like an alternate future, um, or an alternate present rather. But it's about a a company called Lumen and the people that work at this company. So mostly the company is normal, but there is what is called a it's called the severed floor, and it's an isolated floor of this very large building, where everybody who works on this floor has to go undergo a procedure where they put a like a chip probe surgically implanted into the center of their brain. And what this chip does is when you enter the building on that floor, it it basically switches you over to a different personality, or a different, like, you're a separated person essentially. So when you're outside of the building or outside of the floor, then you're like your normal natural self with all your same memories and everything like that. But whenever you go onto this severed floor, you become like the company version of you. So you remember facts about everything, but you don't know anything about yourself other than like they tell you what your name is. Like, so it is so obviously, like, there's weird shit going on, right? Like why does the company need to sever, you
It
know?
keeps everything quiet then. Therefore, there's no leaks. That makes sense.
Yeah, and like they do a really good job of setting up the show, like the show's rules. Like the first like two episodes, they're weaving in story, but they're explaining the rules to you and showing you how, like, because like the first thing that you think is like, I'm going to, like, if this happened to me, this is how I would break through and break out, so they start to show you like, okay, this person is having the same idea, and they just kind of check box like one thing after another, and how the company is like thought of everything, and how you couldn't actually escape. But the point of the show is that they are going to, and just like how it's going to break down and stuff like that. But like it's a good idea, um, but it's really well executed too. Like I didn't really think that there would be that much to the show, but they weave in a lot of lore and a lot of really strange shit about the company. It's very like Willy Wonka esque. Like there's there's this like they're like the department that they're in is very far away from any other department, and all the departments that are on that floor are really far away from each other, and it's through, like, you have to go through very labyrinthian hallways to find the other departments. So you can, but it's clear that they don't want them interacting. It's anyway, but the show is like it's serious for the most part, but it's also really funny in a subtle way. There's so many
So
things that
is it like a dark humor or like I don't know, something along the lines? It seems like the vibe would be something along Control, the video game Control, or something like Portal with that dryer. This is like this is the facility, and these are its rules, but it's funny because it seems ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, it is very much like that. It has this quirkiness to it, like, but yeah, kind of like Portal, like where you start out and they're telling you stuff, and then they slowly introduce like more things where you're like, something's wrong here, and then you kind of get into like some of the background stuff, and you're like, okay, and then it all unravels as you go further. I mean, they kind of know that that there's something wrong here, so they start giving that pretty quickly. Like there's stuff that's it's just obvious like this is very odd, but yeah, man, like it's a good show. It's well acted, and at parts it's the humor is very dry, but it's almost like impossible, or it's hard to see it sometimes. But some of the stuff like I forget the main guy's name. The main guy, he was one of the demons in in that show we were just talking about a minute ago. What?
Oh no! Oh, demons. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're talking about Good Place.
And yeah,
Okay.
he was one of the demons in the Good Place. He's the guy that has that really punchable face. I forget his name. And then it has John.
Was he the Doctor? He was one of the Doctor Who's, right?
Maybe I don't think so though. I think this guy's
Okay.
American, but it also has John Turturro in it, who's really great. His character is super weird and funny, and it's got some other people that you would know. And then it had like a pretty good cameo, not cameo, but a good surprise guest in the second episode. And I was like, holy crap, that's cool. But yeah, it's a good show, plenty of mystery, and it's really fun. I'm really enjoying it. I'm in the middle of episode 5 right now, and I think there's only going to be about 8 episodes, but it doesn't look like it's going to wrap up in one season. It seems like it's going to be a multi-season thing, but I do kind of hope that they get it done in 2 or 3, because I don't know. Like I feel like this is probably, it's a good idea. It's well executed, but it does have a limited shelf life. But it's really good.
All right. Well, that's really cool. I'm curious about that. And yeah, I know who you're talking about. The guy's face. That is Adam Scott. And
Oh yeah,
I
he's the main
wanted to.
guy.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the demon. Who he pretends to be a really good fan of Eleanor's in A Good Place. Um, but I could have sworn he was in either in Doctor Who, or he was in one of the other spin-offs,
There's a one of the more
Torchwood or something like that.
one of the more recent Doctor Who's does look a lot like him.
Okay.
I do remember that guy. He was the guy who played Kilgrave in Jessica Jones' first season. Um,
Okay.
I think that's the guy who was the Doctor Who.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I'm probably just getting it mixed up. That is all. So,
yeah.
but yeah, that's cool. On my end though, because of all this travel for the last week and such, uh, I've tried to watch that new Spider-Man. Was that Far From Home? No, No Way Home.
No way
No Way
home.
Home. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've tried watching that like 5 times. Um, it's literally just okay. Let's get this thing started, and like either one of my kids wakes up and we're like, okay, let's pause this. And by the time we get to it, it's like, you still want to watch this? I don't really feel like it. Or hey, let's all sit down and watch this. And like, can we really commit to this? Like, so we want to watch it, we really do, but we just haven't gotten around to it. So it's been a really funny attempt. So I've heard the intro a bunch. I should just go 5 minute increments throughout the entire movie.
Dude,
Uh,
I'd say that movie is really good. And I would recommend, if you can't, I would recommend taking the like putting it off until you have time to like actually watch it, like give it a good watch, because it is worth to me. It's like a, I don't know, sometimes you watch a movie. If you're gonna watch a movie on like a Tuesday night, it's like this can be a whatever movie. This movie is like a Friday night movie, Saturday night movie, your prime time enjoyment
it
time.
deserves your undivided attention.
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely one of the best, if not the best, Marvel movie. Um, it's way up there. I don't know if it's as good to me as like the like Infinity War stuff, because that was pretty special, but it's pretty close if it's not.
All right. Yeah, it's like I said, I've heard nothing but good things about it. So, uh, but on the flip side, I've been since we've had a little bit of time, my wife and I decided to introduce her parents to the My Dress Up Darling anime.
Oh man.
because I like to watch them squirm. Uh, mind you, they are very patient with me, and they understand my sense of humor. Uh, they, my wife is very much into anime as a kid, but she comes
So
from pastor's family. So my father-in-law is a pastor, and she had to hide her VHS of Tenchi Muyo because like one of the VHS covers had the obligatory swimsuit episode,
uh
and so she had to hide that VHS box because if they saw that they'd be very upset.
I haven't seen the cover. I will look it up later, but I've seen plenty of covers that are I'm sure I know exactly.
It's nothing terribly risque. It's just that you're like, well, what is my middle school kid getting into? you know?
Yeah, yeah. There's just stuff that you're just like it's fine, but try explaining that to your parents. Good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just, but they're very open actually about a lot of stuff. They're willing to try and humor me about so that's actually pretty good. So they'll watch it because the characters are interesting, but it's funny because we made it a handful of episodes in now, and it's just watching trying to
So,
the way our sitting room is, I'm like up forward, so they're behind on the sofa. While I'm just sitting on like a dining room chair closer to the TV.
uh,
So then I'm looking at them, and I'm like, and then she's talking about sewing the boob bag. She's like, yeah, this boob bag's great, and I quickly look to see the reaction. I look back, and I look back.
so that show lulls you in. I mean, you kind of know what it's going to be, I guess, a little bit, but that first episode's pretty normal. It's pretty normal, and it's like okay, she's hot, and he's nervous around her, and then they kind of hint toward the end of it. It's like where this is going, but that second episode goes, it's like, okay, you're here for the second episode, so you know what you're into. And it goes straight into, you know, like
They
bikini.
end the first episode with her introducing what the character is from and saying the whatever high school blah 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 humiliation club, and then like he goes like what, and then the credits end. It's like, and then as I'm immediately rolling into episode two, my father-in-law's like humiliation club.
Here we go.
Uh,
Here we
So
go.
I had, so like I said, I gave him a brief rundown. I'm like, okay, so her character she likes is from an erotic game, and which is an 18 plus thing. Da 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 da. Yep. Okay. Now that you know the facts, let's move on.
Yeah, like like that second episode goes into like it's so awkward, and I mean it's so awkward watching it by myself, but I can't imagine. I don't. What is wrong with you, man? I can't imagine watching that with my in-laws on purpose.
And then
Like,
when the grandpa comes in and opens the door, watching him, and he's watching, or he's going through the scenes, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "I guess he's at the age, but he's looking so intently, and why is he taking notes?"
oh man, that like it is a good show. I can't wait to watch more of it. I don't know. Like I can't wait to watch more of it. I did switching really quickly because you told me to watch this, or maybe you just said you were watching it, but I went ahead and tried it out. I watched the first episode of Don't Toy with Me, Miss Nagatoro.
I told you about that a while ago. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's not quite in the same. It's definitely not in the same vein, but it's pretty close. It's actually pretty close.
the first couple episodes of that are really, they're kind of harsh because it's like really brutal on how it's like or like depending on what translation. Some people it's like in the manga or the scanlations like don't bully me, but yeah, it's like hard. It's like it feels like she's really hardcore bullying him, you know.
Yeah,
Uh, but later on in the manga, they're darn near like just date already. Um, so it gets better.
yeah. That show is um is pretty good. I don't know if I can handle both Dress Up Darling and Nagatoro at the same time. But yeah. Anyway, but
Yeah,
Dress Up Darling's good. I want to watch more of it, but I don't know. I'll probably try to make time to watch the rest of that this coming week.
I mean, I'm like I said, I'm just watching it. I end up watching it dubbed, mostly because I have it on the background while I eat or something like that, so I don't have to. If I'm watching it subbed and I'm trying to do the Japanese, then I have to really focus and give my undivided attention. And then that's just like, nah, dude. It's just the translation or the dubbing for it is pretty solid, I think, and yeah, it's super funny. The latest episode that I just watched, episode 8. Um, the first half continues like the previous storyline from the episode before, and that's fine. But then the second half kind of feels like a new director went into it,
Really?
and I really yeah, it's like the art style seems a little different, and it's just something about the way it's shot, which I found stunning. I don't know. Maybe it's
So it's
just it
good.
was. Yeah, it was good. It was like it was. It felt like a lack of sleep. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm reading. Maybe I'm just gushing over it too much. But I found that second half of the episode. I don't want to give too much to be really something special. I think. Um, but like I said, I since you're not that far into the series, I'm not going to, of course, spoil too much. But I really would like you to get to the end of episode 8 and like because at least my wife hasn't even had to get a chance to watch it. Usually we watch it together, but because we've been so exhausted with these with our days, it's literally I just had my phone above me watching it like as I'm before I go to bed. She's just passed out, and my like so that's But I'm like, this is really good. I really thought it was well done. But yeah, I haven't like that was like the only real anime I've watched this last week. I've just not had enough time to do anything. So it's which is the point of a vacation, right? To be able to go out and I'm spending the time with the family where it counts. But uh,
Yeah.
it really does limit a lot of my scope of things I've been able to do this week.
Right. So, kind of jumping off on that, like, I don't know how long this is or when this was announced, or if it's actually happened yet. But Crunchyroll and Funimation are gonna be, um, or Funimation is moving all of their stuff over to Crunchyroll. I guess it already happened.
Crunchyroll won't run won the buyout. That happened. I forgot to mention that happened before last podcast. So it happened about 3 weeks ago that they officially announced. So that went public,
Okay.
which was surprising. Sony owns. I think Sony owns it all, anyways, or like Sony owned Funimation. So I'm curious how that all rights and shit go.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but because I was looking into a few weeks ago, I found that you could buy, and this is totally moot point now, but you could buy a subscription that would get you both Crunchyroll and Funimation. I was like, oh, I'll just do that because it was like a little bit more, like $3 more, something like that. So I was like, oh, I'll do that. But then they merged anyway. So I was like, okay. So now that they merged and you've got it all on there, I was thinking about restarting my subscription to Crunchyroll as it is. Um, but now that it is all on there, I definitely am going to do that. Um, and I think, do you know if you can have different profiles on there?
I don't know. I've actually never had a subscription service to one of them,
I feel like you
and
can.
the only experience I've had is one of my buddies tried watching My Dress Up Darling from the Funimation app. You can watch episode 1 for free, and he's like, I watched it, but my God, there was a lot of commercials. And he goes, it was kind of worse than like American Idol. So you come back and there'd be a commercial, and then just a couple seconds later there'd be another commercial. So
Dude,
it was really mind numbing for him. So he's like, he goes, and then I just told him, I'm like, well, there's other ways to watch it.
yeah, I tried to watch a little bit just to kind of see what it was like. I tried to watch a little bit of anime without like paying for it and seeing the commercials, and they pop in the commercials a lot, and then worse than that is it's like the same two commercials. So it's really grating on you. It's just like this is I don't know. It just makes it even worse somehow. But yeah, I'll probably be paying for that. Then if we do have different profiles, or regardless, I'll throw you my account, and then you can enjoy that if you want.
That'd be sweet. So, all right, outside the TV spectrum, have you got a chance to actually play anything this last, between your moves?
Yeah, I have barely been able to play anything. I should have tried to make a priority of it, but I was just like, I'm gonna have a chunk of time. I'm gonna have a chunk of time like this weekend, and it did not materialize. But I did manage to play a little bit of a game that you suggested I play, an old game called Thomas Was Alone. So yeah, I've only gotten a chance to play barely probably 45 minutes or an hour of this game. It's not a long game. I looked up how long to beat, and it's like 3.5 hours. So it'll probably take me about that long, I imagine. But I'm probably like a third of the way in maybe, and I'm on level 3.9. So this game is kind of an oldie but a goodie. It is fully narrated, which I feel like it was one of the first games I saw that was narrated to this degree. Basically, it's a puzzle game with blocks uh, of different colors that have different abilities, and you try to get them all to the end point. So from the beginning to the end, and it starts out with a very simple puzzle, and it teaches you how to play like as you play. And right now I have four different blocks, like a long, tall one that's yellow, a shorter red one that's the same kind of shape but just shorter, and then a square that's orange and very small, and then a big block. Anyway, so it's just now getting to the part where it's like difficult, starting to get more difficult. Like I can still get it like after like one or two tries, um, but it's I can tell it's probably going to get quite a bit more complicated as it goes on.
Yeah, so this game was done by Mike Bithell, and the did games like was it Subsurface Circular, and there was a sequel to that, Quarantine Circular. I think something like that. Volume was one of them. Was the one directly after that. But Thomas Was Alone was the first game he did. Has credit for 2012.
Yeah,
Um, and then like I think was attributed to that John Wick game, the John Wick Hex, and which was kind of, I guess it got middling reviews, but then also Solitaire Conspiracy, which apparently a lot of I heard people liking. So, uh, but Thomas Was Alone. Because it has, in my brain, it occupies a certain space where around this time games were trying to present, it was the first major push to games to art argument
yeah,
like you could really have, because yes, it's a simple, or it's a light puzzle game, but because of the narration and the way it's done, uh, it's providing you with more. It's there's an oddness to it because he's literally, this narrator is kind of narrating what's going on, is speaking for the main character, but also kind of just explaining what's going on with the world to a certain extent. The Danny Wallace actually won a BAFTA award for this one.
yeah,
Um, and so that's kind of impressive, because especially around that time, video games not really winning a whole lot of awards for things like this. Games, this there was stuff like Unfinished Swan.
yeah.
Um,
I played that a little
you
bit.
know, yeah. So like there was those kind of games coming out on the PlayStation.
And
Um,
I think it's kind of because like what 2012. So you're talking about kind of toward the end of the PlayStation 3's life cycle. So they're kind of getting a handle on what's going on with the console, and some of those early PlayStation 3 games are still pretty muddy and kind of gross looking. But by the end of that life cycle, they'd gotten a handle on the colors and kind of simplifying gameplay, and yeah, they could make it look more cinematic, if you will. and lend games to like, hey, this is not like some dumb like kill everybody as quickly as you possibly can, but you can actually tell a little bit of a story here with the art of it.
And I think it's when certain things had hit their stride because at this point, the quote unquote walking simulator had already been out for a while,
Yeah.
and people have already kind of gotten used to that. So they were more familiar. People were understanding of you're buying an experience less than an actual video game. For example, though, I had a friend who their concept of a video game, they were very archaic in their sense. Like a video game has to be a video game. So if it's not like an old arcade kind of shooter, if it's not complete button versus action, he did not give a damn about anything story related. It had to provide you with that direct entertainment. And I quote, Space Harrier is the ultimate video game.
Okay.
Like,
I'm not
because it
familiar with
was
Space Harrier.
it's a third person. You're flying. It's a Sega game, and you're flying. It was early arcade stuff, so it provided that illusion of 3D. Have you ever played the old video game Outrun, where you're the car? But Space Harrier, you're a flying dude going forward. You have to dodge left and right these orbs and enemies shooting at you, and you just have a
Oh,
jetpack and you're shooting forward.
that is a
Um,
that is a video game ass video game.
yeah, so like the idea of playing this game angered him. He thought
Yeah.
it was the worst game ever, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Okay, but this also around the same time, or at least when I experienced it, I played it around the same time as Journey, which Journey, not that just a little while ago, had launched their 10-year anniversary, and they brought it to some new consoles and new you can get it at more places. I think you can get it on Steam now, and my father-in-law having visited us in Korea at the time, or both my in-laws, I actually sat him down and I let him play Thomas Was Alone, and I also sat him down and played Journey. And Journey was an amazing game for myself because for anyone who doesn't know Journey, it's it's a single player experience, kind of, and the more you don't know about it, it's actually the better. But it's a very uh, I don't know, spiritual experience to a certain extent. You get what you want in it essentially.
So
So
you sat me down many years ago and had me play Journey as well, and um, I thought it was good, but like I think that I'd heard so much about it by the time that I had played it. Not really like what happens in it, but just so much of it being a like a big spiritual experience or kind of it was kind of raised to a high level in my mind. So I was like, okay, so like what is like what is this? And so when I played it, there wasn't as many people online playing it, and I didn't have like the same. I don't know. I probably should have
think
played
that's
it.
actually I think actually that's better. So how it works for is you meet other characters and they are playing online, but you don't actually directly help each other. You can kind of be like, "Hey, I'm here." Um, I didn't know that going in at all, and so, for example, didn't know if this was an NPC. I didn't know if this was another player character. All you do is do a little blip above you, and they do a blip above them, and that was it. And I kind of explored the stages, moved on, and it wasn't until like a late. It just happened to work out for me that certain spots um, when the music heightens and it gets a little more dramatic and things you're like you start speeding up and you're like, oh, this is getting more serious. Then all of a sudden I see other player characters or other these NPCs. I see them around as they're getting attacked or something like that. I'm like, is this a scripted event? I don't know. I'm trying to stick around, but I'm like, no, I got to book. I got to go. And so like, and then it was towards the very end, which no spoilers, but I just happened to be with another person, and we're going through this bit, and it's getting more difficult and sluggish and slow, and it's just like we're just going together, we're struggling together, and then we get to that next scene, and it's just like, holy shit, okay, that just happened, and it was just like, but I didn't know that that was actually another person until afterwards. But it was just like we are kind of like, come on, you can do this, like we were like blipping our, like above us, kind of like encouraging each other. While on the other hand, um, my wife, when she played, she had someone kind of hover around her, guiding her the entire way, which kind of was a completely different experience for her. So she didn't get that. She didn't quite, she almost felt like she wanted that person to go away.
Yeah.
She's like, because they were trying like, oh, let me help you. And then it's just like, and, she's just like, it was kind of like, you're annoying me. Go away. You're robbing me of my, I'm enjoying this. I want to do my own thing. And my, like, but the way the story plays out, like you end up seeing things on a wall, and I interpreted it as the past, while my father-in-law interpreted it as a prophecy. And I'm like, huh, okay. And knowing how, having already beaten the game myself, I'm like, that is interesting that you see it that way. But yeah, he really enjoyed that game, and he actually he wants to play that game again, because he's just like, but it was something short enough and simple enough. But yeah, once again, it occupies that same space as art, as entertainment, and everyone's going to get something taken away different. I said the best Reddit meme was, eventually if you play that game enough times, you get a red robe, and then you get it promoted to a white. And
Right.
so someone showed us, it was like a little comic panel when you're surfing on the sand. They're like, wow, this is really beautiful. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you see this other dude with a white robe, and he goes, wait, how the fuck do I get that? And that's all they think about is, how do I get that white robe? And it completely ruins their experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there was a guy with a white robe floating around, like whenever I played it. I don't know. Like I kind of wish I had been able to just play it without having heard anything about it. And I don't know. I was like
That is the best way, for sure.
people talk
The
about
most
it
unknown.
like it's, like like it's, it was an amazing experience for them the first time they played it. And a lot of people gave it game of the year. Um, at the time, it's kind of a stunt to me, but I also, they also seem sincere about it. I don't know. If it's on Steam, depending on how much it costs, I probably need to play. I'm gonna buy it again, buy it and play it again, because I feel like I need to give it another chance, and see. I don't know. Try to put myself in that headspace, especially while it's fairly new again. I mean, there'll be a lot of people playing.
Yeah, but most definitely anyone who hasn't ever played Journey, don't read, don't try to find out more information about it. Just, I recommend, if it's on sale, for sure, if it's on sale, pick it up. I mean, those games go out like, I think that same studio ended up doing stuff like Flower and
Oh yeah.
Flow. I think there was like they used to come in a pack for the PS3. Um, but yeah, then there was Thomas Was Alone. Was just, it's a short experience, but it's a wonderful experience, I think. So can't recommend that one enough.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So that's pretty much what I've been playing. Was Thomas Was Alone, but have you had a chance to play anything else?
Yeah, so I finally got past the demo of Triangle Strategy. um,
That's a long demo.
I
It's a good long demo. I'll give them that. They do give a lot to you.
so when you talked about the demo, we got some comments, just explaining how someone commented, how if you press X, and it'll actually pull up a little information panel about the character who's speaking,
Mhm.
and that was clutch. That was a really good thing, because like you had like I did that for everyone, and it really helped me follow along a little bit better. Um, I I'm finding the story interesting, but also, like, it is long. There's a lot of story there. I'm like, I don't know if I can get I don't know if I'm going to be able to really commit to this long game, because the story is quite good. At least so far. I'm interested. I'm like, you know what? I really would love to be able to put the amount of hours into this. Um, the combat has been fun, and you kind of have me sold. I just barely, like, in the last 2 weeks, I've only been able to go through the demo. I actually have the game, on the full game of unlocked on my Switch. I just don't have, I haven't had the time. But granted, I'm on vacation, so I haven't had time for much of anything. But I'm like, how difficult it's going to be me to try to keep up with anything else and still try to play this. Um, yeah, I've heard. I was listening to another podcast talk, and the dude's like, "Yeah, I'm literally." He goes, "They have it set on auto, so all the text just auto goes through, and it goes. My screen blacked out. That's how long it took. You know, their
Oh
screen is
wow,
shut off
because he
because
wasn't
the
pressing
just the
buttons.
yeah.
So okay, so a couple things. So yeah, the X hitting X to bring up the character's bio is awesome. And I think that they should have that there. But that's also the only time that you can see the character art. And the character art, I forget the guy who does this, but he did Octopath Traveler. I think he does Bravely Default, and Nier as well. He's a fantastic artist, probably the best, like the best like video game artist that I can think of that's currently working. And You don't get to see the art unless you hit X. And and I kind of think that they should have thrown the
From their
dialogue.
portrait up while the dialogue happens. So when one person speaks, on one side of the screen you see their face
Yep.
and their text, and then when they stop talking, the dude next to them, they pop up, and then it has their text. Because that I thought that the entire way through, I'm like, I mean, I know lots of other RPGs do that. I want to say Final Fantasy Tactics did that too. It's been so long since I played, I can't
Yeah, I think
guarantee
they
that
did.
one. But I just know that a lot of my old school RPGs would show a character portrait, and then it'd just be popping up with one person and their dialogue, and then the next person's face and what they're saying, and that's what they should have done. If you're really good, you might have one or two facial expressions,
Yeah.
like in that character portrait, where like when they're surprised or something like that. Yeah, that'd be nice, but at the very minimum, just have their face, because then it really gives it that
I
little
mean,
bit just gives it so much more.
it like that would have been really great. I think that I'm sure the artist is. I'm sure this guy. Gosh, I can't think of his name. But I'm sure he's very expensive. But at the same time, like they're your characters, you can get some peons in there to copy his style and draw. Like the other expressions, and you don't have to do a different expression for every single character in the game. But for the main characters, like the ones in your party, I think having separate expressions would have been really good. I feel like it's nitpicking, but like when you're reading this much text, and when when the story is kind of this kind of slow, grinded out pace, every little bit really helps. They should have, to me, they should have thought about this like as like a half visual novel, you know, that they should have kind of approached it that way. I think that like the battle system and everything is really great, but yeah, like they should have tried to get that in there. I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to play like anymore since the last podcast. I played like a little bit of like a training thing, but nothing meaningful. But I'm gonna keep playing it, and I'll probably report. I think that's gonna be like one of the next things I play. I'll report back in a couple weeks on how it's going. But yeah, it's a good game. Like it really started to hook me toward the end of the demo. Like once they kind of show you a little more of the story, and they show you a little bit of kind of outside of the battle system, sort of how choices are made, and how like the story, how like they gamify the story with like choices and stuff. Then I was like, okay, this is gonna make paying attention to the story a lot more important and meaningful with the different choices that you have to make. So anyway, I'm looking forward to playing it more.
Yeah, I decided to look up a little more information about the choices in the game. I didn't want to. I wasn't going to necessarily spoil it for me, but I wanted to know how impactful the choices were actually, because the
Okay.
fact dude, if I have like I only have so much time, and then I'm reading all this stuff like, yeah, most people in order to get like the full breadth, you should play twice, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me! Like I can't do that because if you play it once all the way through, you unlock the ability to see your numbers for your three stats,
Oh, okay.
for your for the the choices you make, and then depending on those numbers, how you get those numbers, those will um, you actually unlock the ability to a make certain dialogue choices later, or b you could actually unlock new characters depending so if you might not be able to get a character in your party if you don't have enough of one of the three numbers. So it's one of those, so you don't get the ability to look at that until you beat the game. And I'm like, oh shit, dude.
Well, I mean,
I,
yeah, for things like that, I kind of just assume that everything is sort of like the old Mass Effect games where they give you choices and they kind of matter, but there's only a few choices that really matter because they kind of, I mean, the game has to go in a certain direction. They've got to like they can give you choices, but they've got to circle back to sort of what they were going for, like as it is, because otherwise you have to make three totally different games. If you're going to have three choices or three branches that you could really go through.
yeah. So yeah, that was that I want to play. I want to get more into it.
Me
Uh,
too, dude.
Probably end up putting in at least my goal, I should say, is to put at least another 10 to 15 hours in. Mostly because I wanted to hook me completely, so I just dedicate all my time into it. But if it won't pull me away from everything else, and if I can't be hooked to that extreme, then I'm just going to have to let it go, and then maybe play it here and there. But I do actually like the fact that it doesn't have you don't switch jobs like Final Fantasy Tactics. My good buddy, he will he'll be upset with me that I said that because he mastered Final Fantasy Tactics to a sick level. He knows how to min max that game and knows how to just you keep one little son of a bitch alive and you just beat on that dude forever and power level your guys and so I'm like, no, dude, I just like a more streamlined tactics game, then yes, this one lets you grind a little bit to when you need to. But honestly, I think it's well done. A lot of people I never got to play Octopath Traveler, and so there's a lot of talk on the internet about how I'm kind of done with this art style. I'm like, dude, I still like this art style. I think this art style looks good. It reminds me in my brain. It's like how I remember tactics was originally.
Like
You
you're
know,
talking about like the tilt shift art style of the actual
yeah,
gameplay.
yeah, the tilt shift, or and how everyone looks a little chibi. They're cutesy versions of themselves. I'm like, yeah, but that's how my brain remembers tactics to begin with, like Final Fantasy Tactics, that is. And so, I mean, could it be different? Yes, but is it bad? No. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I think that the tilt shift art style um harkens back to, yeah, like those old Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest or whatever games where you are kind of that little squat character walking around, but it harkens back to it, but it kind of modernizes it and sort of, I don't know, makes it how you like the it kind of recreates the magic of seeing that stuff for the first time, like when it was new.
yeah.
So like I haven't gotten tired of it yet. In a couple more games, I think I will get kind of tired of it, but hopefully by then they'll maybe advance it or switch on to something else.
I mean, you could still do the same style, but actually change up the actual character models,
Sure.
and I think it'd still work perfectly fine. But I mean, you're working with a limited scope, and there's not really much else you can do. But when you're looking at it, I also come from a background of playing a lot of Super Nintendo RPGs, and a lot of that stuff. The world map looked so similar, so it's just it's fine.
Yeah.
But as far as this goes, I think it looks lovely, and the game's a lot of fun. I can see why everyone's hooked on it.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
how do you like the battle system?
I think the battle system is, you know, what's the, I it feels just like any other tactics game, really. So I didn't really find it to be. I prefer having the critical hit chance, which a lot of them have included. So that's like nothing new. Um, to be able to see the enemy grid, and like all that's pretty fair. So it's just they're not reinventing the wheel or anything like that. It's mostly, in my opinion, when you play a tactics game, I feel like you have to have a good story, because if you don't have a good story, it's then why the hell are you playing it? I mean,
Yeah, I mean that was kind of my main thing. Like if I was gonna fix this game, so slight spoilers for the beginning of this. Um, so this game at the beginning they are talking all about the Salt Iron War, right? So
yeah,
like as they talk about this, they're like, okay, Salt Iron War, this and this and this happened and stuff like that. And after I got through quite a bit of it, I was like, what would have been a perfect beginning to this game if they taught you how to play they taught you the battle system by doing it through a prequel or like a like a
arc battle.
a prologue
Yeah,
where you are fighting at the very end of the Salt Iron War. So like I forget the dad's name or the uncle's name or whatever. But like the guy that did so much in the Salt Iron War, you fight as him and like three other throwaway characters, and they just like do that. And that would be like a really good way to go, okay, this is what happened then. This is why it was important. Here's some cool shit you get to do. And now fast forward to the future or the present where, your main character is and what they're doing. And then you could slow it down and say, okay, this is this. And you wouldn't have to explain so much of like, this is what happened in the Salt War because you already saw it. You were quote there.
yeah.
Anyway, that's how I'd fix it
They've
though.
done that stuff with our other RPGs where you get to you play the historic battle, and then they fast forwarded to now you're in a classroom. So literally they were learning about it, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times they'll do, in order to just to have more action oriented, they'll have it a feature battle. So then it's like here's some stuff, ends on kind of a weird note, and then it flashes, and like a year ago, or and then that's when you start the game. So the part that you played was this weird moment of the future, and now you're going to be catching up to that scene. It's yeah, it's a little slow on the bit. I mean, I thought it was, I
It's
instantly yelled at the screen, like, why are you leaving? Like, the ship went all the way there. Why are you just leaving these people there? You're like, yeah, okay, guys, thanks for giving us. We're not even restocking our ship. We're just gonna set sail, and then they're all sudden ambushed. I'm like, that's kind of silly. Um, but
yeah.
actually, the characters are pretty likable so far. And
They're good. Like that is where I am kind of having to eat my words a little bit now that I'm getting to the point where I don't know. It's just a slow, gradual realization that dang, these characters are really good and they feel more real because the story is naturally slow or it has a naturalness to its slow pace. But yeah,
it's a steady build up, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
It doesn't feel really forced or ham fisted in a lot of ways, because for the sake of speed, like we need to make this more dramatic, so we're just going to do some arbitrary BS. No, it's. Did you end up your first major just destination choice? Did you where did you choose to go? Did you go to the desert, or did you go to the mountains?
I went to the desert.
Okay, me too. Okay.
Yeah, I think like that just seemed more interesting, and it was easier to convince them to go. I mean, with that one they really give you the option. Like there's a certain trick to it where if you're paying attention, you go, okay, so all I have to do is do this one thing, um, and you can go wherever you want. But like every time you do something, you win a battle, you make a decision, it strengthens it strengthens Sarah Noah's convictions, and so I think that as you go on, there's going to be things that are going to be closed off to you because of the choices that you made prior. I hope anyway.
Yeah. So all right. Well, that's about as all I've actually got a chance to play. So hopefully I'll get more to that later on when I get back from vacation. But we'll see, because I said, the moment I was on the airplane, luckily my kids handled it fine. Like I was afraid of the ears popping and stuff. No, handled just fine. But that was a crammed ass airplane.
I bet.
So you ever fly Southwest? It is a free for all. They literally board you by your section, and then they're like, "Yeah, pick any seat you want."
Good luck.
Just have at it. And
Yeah.
no, literally, I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" And so it was, and then they're like, I bought my tickets online. They knew that I was having my wife and I were going to have two kids, one on each lap, and they're like, okay. No one bothered to tell us until we were on the plane sitting next to each other. Oh, you guys can't sit next to each other because there's only four air masks that drop down in one row. So you actually can't sit next to you. I'm like, what the hell? um, and since our in-laws were with us, but we're the parents, so they couldn't come with us, even though we bought our tickets together. So they had to wait in the line, the long queue line, and so we had to hope that they would make it to us. And it was just a fucking shit show.
Wow.
Uh, so I'm like, in the future, I'll just go with a different airline and buy my actual seat, so I can know we know where we're gonna sit, proper. Um, but yeah, it's just I don't know who thought that was a good idea.
I think you can. You may just have to pay more. They nickel and dime you everything on everything.
Oh
And
no, no, no! It is literally you board, sit wherever you can.
wow.
You are free to sit, and it's just like you pay for boarding sooner. If you want to be A group, you have to pay. That's where you pay. You
Oh,
know.
okay.
So if you want the exit row and you're of age, you can then just beeline it to the exit row and get that extra leg room. Um,
People usually say they love Southwest. That's like everyone's favorite airline.
Southwest, the people were the staff was good. The fact that they let you do two check-in luggage, as well as your carry-on for free, that was all awesome. Just but just for us in our specific case of we couldn't like the people at the gate. Desk said we could all board together. So then, when we waited in line with the family login, by the time we made it, the people right at the door said, "Oh, your in laws can't sit with you, or can't board with you. They have to go to the back of the other line." And it's just like so one person like one half of the team didn't know what the other half of the team, and so like they weren't on the same page.
Mm,
And because, like I said, we've talked about this. I had to call the airlines multiple times before booking our flights and while booking them, and no one let us know the proper procedure. This is our first time flying with them, and I'm like, but the staff was all nice, just not everyone had the same information, and all the extra stuff you get for free was decent because for you're not paying like unlike Spirit Air or something like that where you have to pay to have your carry on or some shit. So
yeah.
yeah, it was just one of those things. I'm like, no, dude. If I had my choice, I would have my wife be paid the extra money so she can sit next to her mother. So therefore, two people can sit next, and I'd have my father-in-law next to me. So at least we have two adults to a kid. It will save you a lot more. So here I am against the window holding my kid, hoping that he doesn't like you know. The guy sitting next to me in the middle seat happens to have a really nice suit. He
Uh,
was a really chill dude, but I do not want my kid trying to get his suit messy, kicking his suit or anything like that. I mean, luckily he was a grandpa and stuff like that, so he was really, like I said, he was really chill. That was awesome, dude. I was lucky, but he was, but still, like I did not. So here I am leaning against the window, holding my kid,
yeah.
and then you know, well, it would be nicer if my father-in-law was right there and just being like, "Hey, he can play between the two of us. We're good." Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was it's a me specific problem. But other than that, I can see why people fly with them. I've only heard good things about Southwest as well. But also their airport was a little farther away because I had to go to Midway and not O'Hare, and that was a little bit more of a pain for us. But it was also if I went to O'Hare, it would cost us an extra like 200 a ticket person. So like, okay, we'll go to Midway. So yeah, no, outside of that, that's really it. So let us know what have you found for the news, man.
Oh yeah. So quite a bit of stuff. Not really a slow news week. Um, or slow past couple days anyway. So a lot of harassment going on. So the first thing up is uh, Ori Studio, so Ori and the Blind Forest Studio, accused of being oppressive, sexist workplace. Developers say Moon Studios' no bullshit policy gave founders license to bully and demean. So yeah, that's something that's coming out. I don't know all the specifics here, but there's kind of another studio that's being accused of this kind of thing.
It was something like they had they like to something along the effects of having an open policy, or like being able to kind of be free to speak your mind, and that was like the door opening to being able to be a jerk, essentially.
Yeah,
um,
it says here the founder said they ran an open workplace where people could speak their minds freely. Writes VentureBeat. They could say anything and not have to worry about getting fired. It was a quote no bullshit studio, but that left the door open for the founders to insult each other and anyone else they felt like demeaning in public or private, according to almost all of the developers we interviewed.
That's the argument of freedom of speech, like, and it's twisted and not understanding what freedom of speech means. It's like you're allowed to speak what you want. Freedom of speech means you can say you don't like the government and not get arrested for saying that. It doesn't mean everyone has to listen or respect what you think. But to have that kind of I don't know, simplistic mentality of, yeah, you can, freely badger each other because, that's, we have this open policy. That's not the most forward thinking.
So, um, I forget the comedian's name. I can't think of anybody right now. He got um, Louis C.K. Got in trouble for uh, sexual harassment type stuff. One of the things that I heard him talk about that he would do is he would, and this is kind of graphic, but he would expose himself to people, like in his hotel room, like somebody that like worked for him, and he wouldn't like do anything like beyond that, but he kind of I think he explained. I feel like it was him kind of explaining after he kind of got in trouble for this, that he didn't understand that by doing that he was harassing them. He didn't understand that by doing that he was putting them in a really horrible spot because he was their employer. So even though he wasn't like making them touch him or anything, and he thought that they could say no or whatever, they really couldn't say no. And that seems like what's probably going on here is, hey, we have we have a no bullshit open free speech policy. Say whatever you want. See us up at the top. We're insulting and harassing each other. It's like, yeah, you can do that because you signed the checks, but like that in practice, it doesn't really work that way. Like if I'm a developer, if I'm a programmer or a writer, and you're my boss, like I can't actually insult you. You can insult me because you said you can, and I can't say anything about that. But like I can't actually insult you because I will get fired. And so it creates an imbalanced relationship that people like that don't like, that they don't understand that they are creating that imbalanced relationship. They think that they're just being cool, but it ends up going one way.
Yeah, it boils down to that frat boy mentality, or what people conceive as the old school mentality. And yeah, it's one of those things that the moment someone under them um, makes a joke that hits a little too close for home for their taste, they're fired. you know, it's fun. It's all fun and games until my feelings get hurt, and now I'm the one, and I have the ability to fire you, so you're gone. Yeah,
Yeah, people at the top don't always understand that because they think that they are cool or whatever. But it does create a situation that is extremely uncomfortable. And then I'm seeing some weird stuff in this article, but like I don't have time to go through all of it, but it definitely sucks. Like for me, I will at work a little bit because everybody else does, but I try to like not even curse like at work. Like everybody at my job says, all kinds of stuff, I'll let a curse word slip here or there if it's really appropriate. But in general, especially for the first like 6 months, like I didn't curse at all because there's I don't know, there's a level of professionalism that I think is it's best to just err on the side of being professional. You know, that's like, can't we all just like agree, like, hey, it's work. Maybe don't do that or do this, just simple things like that.
What HR is for.
Yeah. Yeah. What HR's for too. And you just like when things are not clear cut, when you have that no bullshit rule, or hey, you can say whatever you want. There's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy there, and there's a hierarchy there for a reason, because it keeps things in line, it keeps things orderly, and really, it just helps the work get done. Like when you know who your boss is and you know who your subordinates are, it just helps everything run a lot smoother. But yeah. Anyway, so that's it for that one. And the next harassment thing going on. So apparently there was a lawsuit filed against Sony in November 2021, and apparently, so this lawsuit was a lawsuit was filed against Sony Interactive Entertainment, alleging gender discrimination and wrongful termination. 8 women have added their voice to this lawsuit. That's kind of the news, is that 8 more women have come forward. That's kind
Yeah,
of the
they're
long and short
filing
of it.
for a class action lawsuit if I remember correctly, and the person who's spearheading this for the most part was the one who was terminated. But like they were terminated after trying to bring this kind of stuff to the attention of their higher ups, and that's why they were terminated, because they're like, hey, there's this inequality here, and they're like, more or less they wrote that person off. Um, so it's hope by this being a class action lawsuit, this opens the door for more people to come in and speak up, and hopefully it'll gain some more momentum, because it's always difficult being a solitary person standing up to a corporate machine.
Oh yeah,
So
like to me, I mean, with all of these lawsuits and stuff, especially after Activision Blizzard, just the shitstorm there, you know. But even a long time before that, if I ran a company, if I was like a CEO for a company, I would get like my head HR person. I'd say, okay, put together a package, and we're gonna have a retreat or a whatever deal, and all the managers are gonna go to it. Just the managers for starters, and we're gonna have a big come to Jesus meeting on like you cannot like this is like the way the world is. So obviously we're trying to have a fairly run company, but you can't see everything all the time. But I'd be like, look, this is your only warning. I know you guys are all doing good, whatever. This is your only warning. If anything like, the Sony thing or the Ori and the Blind Forest, or the Moon Studios or the Activision Blizzard thing, anything like that comes up at all, then you're fired. Like we're not going to put up with it. Like this is your only warning. It cannot happen. And I just don't understand why it continues to happen. It's crazy.
yeah, a lot of that stuff is it's legacied almost, right?
Yeah.
It was this has already been laid in stone, and it's not until things start. It's like you have to get called out for it before we can change it, because it's like, oh yeah, this has been so ingrained into that company or into the culture, and luckily more and more people are speaking out about this, which is raising awareness, and that awareness will help. push things forward. But unfortunately, there are a lot of it's like any movement, right? You have to get rid of the old blood before and the old way of thinking, because a lot of things is like, oh, it's okay, right? Had a dude at my old work where it was like he came in and the way he talked was very old male mentality of like hello ladies, how's it going, like how are my women today, kind of thing. It's just like, holy crap, I can't believe he's saying that. And it's just like, but he's one of our clients and
Uh,
he means well, and the women who he's talking to know that he's not being offensive because he's not crossing that line, but he's just like out of context, not knowing anything about it. My first time listening to him, like, holy shit, dude. Like, is that for real? And they're like, oh yeah, that dude's a riot. Like he's in a kind of cringy way, but it's just like, but he's been in, he's been in business for like 50 years and all this other stuff. And that's just kind of, that they just kind of write him off as that's how he is. Now, if he did something like, the old, like you see in the old movies or the old cartoons or something that where like you slap the secretary in the ass, then that would cross the line. And that's when all the red flags. But because it's friendly and verbal communication, a lot of the people just accept it. And I'm like, dude, that's really hard to just to be around. But like the women themselves, who he's referring to in my office, were like, they were okay with it because they generally think he's a nice guy and he's fine. But I'm like, okay. But I'm like, I guarantee you, if I tried something like that, I would be I would be out the door in a heartbeat. So uh, yeah, he just got a pass for being legacied in, I guess, or some shit.
yeah,
It was just one of those things that I never thought I'd see nowadays and age, and it really was. Um,
yeah. I mean, the old guard is kind of like that, um, and it's it's a thing that hopefully will change.
yeah, hopefully we'll see.
That's
Hopefully this Sony thing will get more momentum, and obviously more things like this happen, especially with big companies. Hopefully they'll be willing to make the proper changes because they don't want to be the next Blizzard or Activision Blizzard scenario, and they'd
yeah,
be like, okay, let's get our okay, now this is out. Let's go ahead and do right by this. And not drag this out, make this a bigger ordeal because they'll know people who pissed. Um, so hopefully they'll get their act together, and this will. If the big ones get this way, hopefully a lot of the smaller ones will, get their act together.
yeah. I think we're probably going to continue to see it quite a bit more, but I hope we can
Unfortunately,
hope we can get sorted out. Talking about Sony, they though separately, this is seems to be all above board. Sony is buying Jade Raymond's Haven Studios as part of its live service push. So that was coming from The Verge. I don't know if they're originally reporting it, but um, I guess they probably could give it to everybody at the same time for something like this. But yeah, so I don't know too much about Haven Studios, but apparently Sony is acquiring them.
yeah. The other thing is they also quickly sent out another statement saying, "Hey, don't worry, we're still focusing on our single player experiences despite trying to push for the online services."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, they should have a multi. You know, if you don't want to stick with just one thing, they should have a multi front. You know, attack. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what else that they could come up with Haven stuff. I don't know. Like, I'm not that much into live service games, honestly. But I guess we'll see what they end up with. Um, there's another story I found kind of interesting. So I think this is coming from GameDeveloper.com. Um, uh, so the new Witcher game director, he said, "Crunch never on my watch." So he's promising essentially that he will never engage in what is commonly known as crunch in order to finish a game. Um, and I was kind of wondering Joe, what you thought about this.
Um, so ideally, on the surface level, you don't want crunch. Crunch is an inevitability in a lot of ways, which really sucks.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, all right, he can keep his word by saying he will never tell his employees specifically they have to crunch.
Well, nobody ever
Uh,
does.
but then it becomes the thing of I know a lot of developers will put in the crunch time, but it's because it's like it's my studio or it's my company, it's my baby project. I want to do, I want to participate because this is they're passionate about it, so they will do their best to do that. And it's there's good and bad to that. Like obviously you want your thing to come out on time. Obviously you want it to come, like you don't want it people to be angry. But I think more and more people are realizing it's okay to delay your game. It's okay because chances are you're making a better product. If you're going to be making something while suffering, there's going to be a lot more mistakes, a lot more things missed. Uh, go ahead and take your time. I mean, if anything, this last couple of years with COVID, and people having to work from home and realize that, yeah, shit don't come out on time anymore. That's just how it is. So hopefully the idea of crunch won't be there. I honestly think a lot of companies will still have it. It's just a matter of do they offset it, right? Do they do mandatory days off? Because a lot of times the old school crunch, that's all you literally were there all the time. Um, having worked for just having worked retail as an assistant manager, trying to desperately to try to prove myself to get myself promoted, and not having enough hours in the payroll to make happen what happened. I worked a lot of off the clock time after hours to get things squared away so the store looks good and that stuff like that. Like because you're young, you're dumb, and you think you're doing what's best for the company and what's best for like, and you kind of are, but at what sacrifice? I mean, it's just like, uh, but now, like I think people are realizing there's a shortage of people in game development. So the hardest part is getting them to stay with you. Because if you're going to make all your employees crunch, they can just jump ship, get paid equal or if not better somewhere else, and with better benefits. Like if you have to. Now you can work from home for most places. Before you had to relocate somewhere, and of course, if I'm going to relocate across the world for a company, I want to prove myself to that company because I don't want them to let me go because I just moved here. I need to prove myself as an asset. But game developers are going to have to realize they have to work for instead of the employees working for the company has to work for the employees, and I think that's
Yeah.
slowly starting to turn.
Yeah, I think it is too. I don't know if yeah, I mean like crunch is kind of a weird thing. Um it's one of those things that I do think it might be a little bit inevitable, at least with the way things are right now. I think that crunch might be avoidable if games were more expensive, um, uh, because that would mean they could pay people more, or they could pay more people more and spend less time on it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like they could they could afford to use
They can
more
afford to take
hours.
their time.
Yeah, they can afford to take their time. Is what I'm trying to say, I guess. But like as it is, they don't. They're. It seems like they're kind of like in a rock and a hard place with a lot of these games. And then a lot of the best games that you hear about or that you play, you hear about their insane work hours. A lot of the Sony games, like all the top tier Sony games, uh, are kind of riddled with crunch. I don't know too much about God of War. I haven't heard too much about that, but I imagine there's probably you know plenty going on there. It seems to be kind of an endemic problem with game development because you're kind of every time you make a game, you're sort of inventing something new. That's sort of the name of the game, as it were. You're not really just building another building. You're trying to innovate because that's what's going to sell your game. You're making, you know, as much as you are building something that has been constructed before, there's also always like a 10 to 20% minimum element of art to it where you're like, nobody's ever made this mechanic before. And we have to figure out how to make it work. And it's just like we have to figure it out. We have no idea how long it's going to take. So, and then, but like shareholders, and board members want, a date put, and they get pissed whenever you miss that date.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the fact that traditional crunch, uh, it wouldn't be just like, oh, hey, the games we have the last month, we're going to have to put in like, 60, 80-hour work weeks. It's not just for that last stretch. It's like, throughout the development, you having to put in for many key points, just constant overtime, because there's always any job. There's always that final bit to the last when the project is complete. You put in the overtime, but there's a difference between overtime and crunch, and that's when it comes to developers like Sony, especially when it's the Japanese studios themselves. You have to realize their culture was always based on the company, and I remember the old Gran Turismo, when you did the tour of the studios, you could actually see that the desk that they worked at had curtains. Some people had curtains on their desks because what they do is they crawl into a sleeping bag underneath their desk, and that's how, because by the time they were done with their workday, the last train was already gone. So they would just sleep under their desk, get up the next day, and go back to work.
Dude,
Uh,
that's so hardcore.
yeah, well, granted, like I said, I'm assuming, or at least I'm hoping, some of that has gotten better. But I remember them showing those videos for like the making of Gran Turismo 2 and 3, because they did like a tour of the studios, and it's just, uh, I think people being aware of crunch now, and more people speaking out about it, it's just gamers are more understanding now than ever. For example, Nintendo has a history of bumping back their games, and it's like beforehand, all the fans would be really up in arms, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe Mario or Zelda got put back," and now it's just like, it's happened enough times. Where like, of course, Zelda got pushed back. Zelda always gets pushed back, but it's always worth it in the end.
Yep.
Um, and with a lot of other studios coming out, like, it's fine if the people are not going to suffer as much. We're willing to have them wait, come out with a better quality game, and that the people aren't suffering in order to make your product.
Yeah.
But if you rush out a game too quickly, it's going to be a buggy, sloppy mess. And that's just we I think we're getting better. Granted, it's not 100%. Things are still going to come out like that, but
I think you're right. I think you're right. But like the other thing too is like, we shouldn't be hearing about games 3 years before they come out. Like that would take a lot of the load off of studios if it was like internal. Hey, project Aardvark or whatever, or project Neanderthal, and it's like the new Near, or something like that, where it's like, hey, we're working on this game, it's going to be good, but like you don't announce it until it's 6 months to a year out.
I have to disagree with you on that. The reason why is because you have to announce the game, because you have to ramp up the build up. You have to get the people hiring for it. You don't, uh, it's just like you state, um, when you're trying to make a call out to get people to hire onto your project. You want people with experience. Yes, you can't do a blanket statement of, um, we're Blizzard and we're hiring for an online team to handle with who have experience with role playing. Like, oh, that's probably for WoW expansion. But it's like when it comes to, you generally want to at least announce your game to get the people interested, and to also to get the talent to come to you. Because I mean, what's the other option? I'm going to hunt. You can scout some people, but you're still,
I don't think that you have to make that universally public. I think there's ways that you can. I mean, you're not putting it in the Sunday paper. You know, you kind of know who your talent pool is. You know who you're looking for, um, and you can contact those people more or less individually or through a service, and go like, hey, it's a big game. It's for a big company. This is the company. This is the style game that it is. If you're interested in hearing more, we just need you to sign a quick NDA, and we can tell you what the game is, and then you can decide if you're into it or not. I think there's probably a workaround, and I think that would go a long way with developers talking to shareholders, board members, suits essentially, and saying, hey, this is a game we're going to make. It's going to take between 3 and 5 years to make it, and they could go, okay, this game is worth it, or no, it's not, or, we can work that stuff out. And then, yeah, it needs to take between 3 and 4 years. Okay, we'll go with that. But we're not going to announce it to everybody until we're relatively sure that we can hit that date, or within 3 months of that date. Because if you don't put that pressure on them, then they have more leeway, and they don't have to like hit it in that second year and crunch for a year or two. It's just like that kind of stuff that's the kind of crunch that we need to get rid of. I could understand like a month or even 3 months of really severe 80-hour, 90-hour weeks for people. It's horrible, and we should prevent that. But it's more understandable than like some of the stuff I've heard that's like 6 months or a year of just grueling, horrible 90-hour weeks. I think there's things that we could do that would help it at least.
Oh, I lost like the last 30 seconds of your conversation, but apparently you just rolled, so that was okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Well, that's
so
fine.
if on screen, if I'm just standing there stock perfectly still, then I also like glitch to the left a little bit. That's why.
You were very still. But anyway, that's all we have to say about that, I guess.
Uh, yeah, it's it's one of those things that it's not, there's no perfect system around it yet, but I think it's one of those. Uh, for example, Square never seems to hit their marks when it comes to a IDOS game. They're like, yeah, or when it comes to like the Guardians of the Galaxy didn't do so hot, like didn't meet our expectations. Like what? I'm pretty sure they said something similar with Tomb Raider, and they probably said the same thing with was it Deus Ex probably. But it's just like there's no matter what, there's just no pleasing them. But if Square, then it's like, oh yeah, Kingdom Hearts, you can take the a decade to make the next Kingdom Hearts game. That's fine. You can just blow all of our money on this game, mainly because it's tied up into probably a logistical nightmare with Disney. So who knows? But yeah, it's just that game seems to take forever. But no one ever seems to complain when they make anything about the sales numbers there, because they have to pretend everything's great. But no, it's just Guardians was great. The Guardians was awesome, and it did well for most people. It considered a moderate success at the minimum, but they're like, no, it didn't meet our expectations. Well, maybe you should fucking rein yourself in, because you keep on having this problem.
Yeah, they have ideas about how much money they want to make, even if it does sell well. Sometimes they're like, well, it's not worth it because we should have done something that really sold gangbusters, and so they just kind of they have all kinds of weird metrics and stuff like that. But anyway, that's kind of the long and short of that. The next thing is one of the last pieces of news really is the Mass Effect game director is creating a new sci-fi universe at Humanoid Studios. So I thought that was interesting because Mass Effect, the Andromeda Mass Effect, really shit the bed in a lot of ways, and I've heard a lot of people who love Mass Effect say that it just kind of cratered the series, at least for the time being. But maybe people who are into that will be able to jump onto this new sci-fi adventure from the old Mass Effect guy.
Yeah, Mass Effect was the original trilogy was the end of an era for the old BioWare RPG style. I mean, granted, they made that game more modern as time went on, and everyone seems to like Mass Effect 2 because that became more combat oriented. I personally really hated it, but I seem to have a lot more bugs with it than most. Like I just the cover system was really bad for me, and uh, it was funny because I had people over and they're like, I'm like, look at this. I'm trying to take cover. And my guy's just popping out of cover and doing all this weird shank. And I didn't like the more combat heavy focus that went to, but the story wise was always just phenomenal. A lot of people were disappointed in three. I still, you can't. I really can't see how you can end a series perfect when it comes to that much, that long of hype. So I think
Yeah.
they did a fair enough job. Now, as far as Andromeda, I only watched people play it. I'm never going to invest my time to that, and it's like the funniest thing I heard was someone said it retroactively makes Mass Effect the series worse, just for its existing,
Of
because,
odd.
and I'm like, yeah, it does tarnish the name, right? But then after that, they come out with some other garbage stuff. They came out with that Anthem, and
Oh man,
Anthem was
yeah.
like, what are you thinking? And so like Bioware, everyone's like, yeah, Bioware is the old Bioware that you remember is dead. All the old crew that really made it what it's worth, they all jumped ship at some point. So the what you are stuck with now is the company name that's now tarnished. And yes,
Well,
you still have talented people there, but the people who are running the ship and like guiding them, there's a disconnect.
we're just watching, and we knew it was going to happen. Like EA just destroy another studio. That's we knew that was going to happen because that's what they do. They take studios that are doing great on their own, they bring them in, and they run them into the ground, probably through too much oversight, too much fiddling with with what they're doing. Like, what are you guys doing? Is it on time? Is it making money? Is it gonna is it a cash cow? Is it a Fortnite? You know, and it just sucks. Like EA, I know that they've had some decent stuff in recent times. I mean, like they won like game of the year with It Takes Two, um, for a lot of outlets, but besides that, like I feel like I don't know, I feel like that's kind of just lucky. But Bioware is just another corpse on the EA pile.
Yeah, it's. I think Microsoft does it pretty well, and currently, at least, where when they
Yeah,
acquire a studio,
yeah,
they gave it its like own little autonomy, and like you guys can still run yourself, or at least that's the feel that I get from it. Maybe that's not how it really works, but at least on the surface level, that's what I've felt, and like they still, these guys are running themselves, and they're able to still produce really quality things. Um,
yeah,
that's opposed to just being acquired and then being micromanaged. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's too bad, but the Mass Effect games were I tried them and they weren't really for me. I've also seen a huge amount of them played through, um, so they're not really for me. But I am glad that you guys and people who liked Mass Effect might get a new crack at something different.
Yeah, I mean, if it's, I was always a fan of, Knights of the Old Republic, and yeah,
KOTOR.
KOTOR was one of the staples of my modern RPG experience on console. And then when I played Mass Effect, I had to choose Vanguard. He was the guy with force powers that also had a shotgun, and so I just lifted a dude in the air and I just blew him away. Or there was nothing more fun than lifting him up and then having my buddy punt that guy to like off the map. And it's like, yeah, all right, that's satisfying. But the story was really stellar. It's one of those things that they promised the world, and of course, they could never really pay off on it. But that's neither here nor there. It was still a super fun experience, and especially going through that when it happened. Playing it, going back in retrospect, maybe it doesn't hold up as well, but as it unfolded, was it was a spectacle to behold.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I didn't play KOTOR when it came out, but I can imagine that it would have blown my freaking mind if I had played it like on a computer or whatever when it was brand new. It would have been freaking crazy. But anyway, that's it for the news. There's some other little things, but we'll leave those out because they're not that important. But yeah, so that's it for the news, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys for sticking with us on this very unusual episode. So next time Nick will have his setup. Well, it seems pretty good right now. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
then I'll be back to my usual stage. So, thanks a lot for sticking around to the end, and we'll see you next time.
All right, guys. See ya.
Take it easy.